Friends, just imagine this. Nearly 900 strikes in the first 12 hours. Hundreds of missiles intercepted. A sky where every single minute can change the outcome. Trump decided to play hardball, and America hit back in a way Iran definitely felt. This isn't a warning. It's a signal that the rules of the game just changed. Want to see how the first week of this massive operation is unfolding? Alright folks, you're watching Grassroots Gazette, and trust me, this is going to be something. If you haven't already, make sure to like and subscribe. Really helps the channel out. Get comfortable and let's dive in. Nearly 900 strikes in just 12 hours. That number doesn't sound like a routine update. It sounds like an alarm bell. This isn't a show of force. It's not some limited response. This is the start of a full-scale military phase, with the stakes turned all the way up. According to Fox News correspondent Jennifer Griffin, citing a senior Pentagon official, the strikes on targets inside Iran were carried out simultaneously from land, air, and sea. Cruise missiles, fighter jets, naval platforms, drones. This wasn't something thrown together on the fly. It was a coordinated, pre-planned operation executed with precision, and all of it unfolded while forces were intercepting hundreds of incoming Iranian ballistic missiles. While one set of units launched strikes, others were busy shooting down retaliatory fire. The sheer volume on both sides makes this feel less like a single episode, and more like a potential turning point. The headline says it all. The time has come. Trump is playing for keeps. Under President Donald Trump, Washington has shifted from warnings to action. This isn't about diplomatic notes or fiery press statements anymore. It's a hard power message, aimed not just at Tehran, but at the entire region. Nearly 900 strikes in the opening hours send a clear message about speed and scale. It's an attempt to set the tempo early, control the momentum, and seize the initiative. This is what the opening move looks like in a high-stakes game where each side is testing the other's limits. And now the real question isn't why it happened. The real question is, if the first 12 hours looked like this, what do the next 12 look like? But if the opening hours looked like a one-sided show of force, it didn't stay that way for long. It quickly became clear there would be a response, and a big one. According to U.S. sources, over the next 24 hours, Iran launched roughly 300 missiles at American positions and facilities across the region. That's not a symbolic gesture, not a single volley. That's an organized, large-scale counterstrike. On top of that, reports say Tehran has rebuilt and expanded its missile arsenal, around 2,000 long-range missiles and another 2,000 shorter range. Numbers like that send a clear message. The capacity for further escalation is very real. This is no longer a strike without consequences. It's a direct exchange of strategic firepower. While the U.S. was carrying out nearly 900 strikes on targets inside Iran, Iranian forces were simultaneously testing the limits of American missile defense systems. One of the most high-profile incidents, a strike near the headquarters of the U.S. Fifth Fleet in Bahrain. Reports indicate a hit on an empty warehouse and a radome radar installation. Officially, the damage is described as limited, but the fact that a site tied to one of the key U.S. naval commands in the region was struck at all immediately raised the stakes. The official line from the U.S. Department of Defense remains firm. The mission is intact, backup systems are in place, operational readiness has not been compromised. Intercepts are ongoing. The operation continues as planned. But there's a question that's hard to ignore. If the damage is minimal, if missile defenses are working, if control is fully maintained, why isn't the pace of strikes slowing down? Why does the exchange of fire seem to be accelerating instead? When both sides signal they're ready to go all the way, a conflict stops being tactical. It becomes about principle, status, and strategic resolve. And that's the moment when initial shock gives way to something deeper, a growing sense of unease. With hundreds of strikes and counterstrikes already exchanged, one thing is becoming clear. The main battlefield right now isn't just on land or at sea, it's in the air. And that's where the real decision about who sets the terms moving forward will be made. According to U.S. military assessments, it could take several more days to fully suppress Iran's air defense systems. That admission stands out, especially after nearly 900 strikes have already been carried out. Despite the scale of the operation, air superiority is not yet absolute, which means one thing: the fight for the skies is still on. Modern warfare logic is blunt and unforgiving. As long as the enemy's air defenses are operational, pilots have to think twice, cruise missiles face interceptions, and drones operate under elevated risk. Without full control of the airspace, you can't move into the next phase. Deeper, more precise, more strategic. That's why taking down air defense systems becomes a critical stage in any large-scale campaign. It's not the flashiest part of a conflict, but it's one of the most important. Radar stations, surface-to-air missile batteries, mobile launchers, they all become top priority targets. Because once the skies are effectively closed, the tempo of the entire operation shifts. In the context of the headline, "The time has come. Trump is playing for keeps." This looks like step one of a broader strategy. First, blind and weaken, then operate freely. But until that phase is complete, every new wave of strikes is also a test. A test of defensive resilience, of interception capabilities, of response speed. And as long as both sides continue to show they can strike and absorb strikes, the sense of tension only builds. Because when the battle for the skies reaches its tipping point, that's when the next, far more serious phase begins. And the question is no longer whether more strikes are coming. The question is what they'll look like once one side finally controls the sky. Amid the missile launches and the push to take down air defenses, one statement may end up mattering more than any battlefield update. According to sources, the US and its partners know where Iran's highly enriched uranium is located, but getting to it, that's extremely difficult. And that's where the conversation shifts to a whole different level. If the goal of this operation is simply a response to provocations, then strikes on infrastructure, military bases, and air defense systems make sense. But if the real focus is the strategic elimination of a potential nuclear threat, then everything happening right now takes on a very different meaning. Highly enriched uranium isn't just another asset. It's a factor in the global balance of power. It's about regional stability, leverage, deterrence. And if this operation is even partially aimed at controlling or neutralizing that element, then we're no longer talking about a tactical move. We're talking about an attempt to reshape the strategic landscape. The difficulty of access says a lot. These sites are likely heavily fortified, deeply layered, and shielded by advanced air defenses, which means that without firm, sustained air superiority, moving to that phase simply isn't possible. And that raises the core question: America delivered a hard response. But to what exactly? To specific missile launches? To regional provocations? Or to the very existence of a long-term strategic threat? If it's the latter, then what we're seeing now may only be the opening act, suppressing air defenses, coordinated strikes from sea, air, and land. All of it could be preparation for something far more precise and far more sensitive. And that's when the true scale of it starts to sink in. Striking warehouses and radar systems is one thing. Attempting to alter a country's strategic capabilities is something else entirely. In that context, the time has come stops sounding like a dramatic phrase and starts sounding like a line in the sand, a threshold beyond which the game shifts to the future balance of power itself. The phrase was delivered almost casually, but it may turn out to be the most unsettling part of all. The operation could last several weeks. Not hours, not days, weeks. That tells you something important. The Pentagon isn't planning a one-off strike or a quick show of force. They're preparing for a sustained campaign, a structured, phased buildup of pressure on Iran. And then there's a second key element. The operation could be stopped earlier at the discretion of President Donald Trump. In other words, timing itself becomes a strategic tool. Keep it going, and you increase the pressure. Stop it, and you lock in whatever gains have been made. Unpredictability becomes part of the strategy. If your opponent doesn't know where the limit is, the psychological impact grows. Any given day could be the climax, or just the setup for the next level. Saying several weeks also sends a message to allies and adversaries alike. It signals readiness, not just to strike, but to sustain tempo, to maintain logistics, to keep the intensity up over time. But there's a flip side. The longer an operation lasts, the greater the risk of expansion. More missile launches, more strikes on bases, more flashpoints igniting across the region. Time itself starts acting as an engine of escalation. And that leads to the uneasy question: if the first 12 hours brought nearly 900 strikes, what does week 3 look like? The pace could slow down, or it could become more selective and more sensitive. Controlling the clock means controlling the pressure. You can pause, create the impression that it's winding down, then ramp it up again. That's when it stops being just a contest of firepower and becomes a test of nerves. If the time has come, marked the launch of the operation, the question now shifts. How long does that time last? And who decides when it's over? When missiles start landing not only inside Iran, but also near a US base in Bahrain, it's clear the geography of this conflict has already expanded beyond a single country. A strike near the area of the US Fifth Fleet, even if officials describe the damage as limited, sends a message. The region is now directly involved. And every new missile launch isn't just another military incident. It's a step toward widening the zone of instability. The Middle East is an incredibly complex web of alliances, rivalries, and quiet understandings. Any hit connected to the United States Navy automatically raises the stakes. Today, a missile lands near a warehouse. Tomorrow, what if the strike is more precise? Any new attack has the potential to draw in US allies across the region, and that changes the nature of the confrontation entirely. It stops being simply US versus Iran and becomes a broader question about the balance of power across the Middle East. In that environment, even defensive actions take on political weight. Intercepting missiles isn't just about protecting a base, it's about signaling a commitment to defend partners. At the same time, Tehran is signaling something of its own. The capability to respond remains intact. The arsenal has been rebuilt. Missile stockpiles are significant, which means the potential for additional waves of strikes is still there. And that's where the real fork in the road appears. If the US operation continues for several weeks and the region is already reacting, how long before the tension spreads further? One miscalculation, one strike on a particularly sensitive target. That's all it takes to trigger a chain reaction. What we're watching isn't just a military campaign. It's a moment where the entire region is balancing on the edge of broader escalation. The question now isn't just about intensity, it's whether this confrontation stays contained between two sides, or whether the Middle East is entering a new phase of large-scale power realignment. Nearly 900 strikes in the first 12 hours, hundreds of missiles intercepted, coordinated attacks from land, air, and sea, a sustained push to take down Iran's air defenses, strikes on military infrastructure, and hints at deeper strategic targets tied to highly enriched uranium. This isn't an isolated incident, this is a phase. From the outset, it was clear the operation wouldn't stop at a simple show of force. If official statements are any indication, this is a campaign designed to last weeks. At the same time, the authority to end it rests with President Donald Trump, which means control over timing is part of the strategy itself. The time has come, and the bet is placed. That line now sounds literal. The bet is on pressure, on tempo, on reshaping the region's strategic equation. But every bet carries risk. Iran is responding with hundreds of missiles. Strikes are reaching areas in Bahrain. The region is tense. Allies are watching closely. Adversaries are testing the boundaries. There's a growing sense that the first wave was only a stress test of air defenses, logistics, and political will. And if that test has been passed, the next phase could be far more precise and far more sensitive. The real question now isn't whether a larger game has begun. It already has. The question is, where's the limit? If the first 12 hours were this intense, what does week 2 look like? If the battle for the skies is decided, what becomes the next target? And is the region prepared for pressure that may only continue to build? America is playing for keeps. But in a high-stakes game, there's rarely just one move, and it's that sense, the anticipation of the next step, that keeps the tension at its peak. And with that, we're wrapping up today's report. What do you think about all this? I'm genuinely looking forward to your thoughts in the comments below. A special welcome to our new subscribers, and double appreciation to those who've been with us from the start.